Madam Chair, members of the committee, John Willems with the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, here today to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 390. MABE stands in opposition to shifting the burden of proof in IEP due process hearings to the local school system. MABE does recognize that the bill is introduced this year is different from previous years, and that it would exclude cases of unilateral placements. And I would like to go on record as stating that that is an improvement over previous iterations in that those cases do give rise to not only high costs, but the situation in which a parent or guardian has not availed themselves of the school system's best offer, if you will. And so you don't have any compare and contrast of what the school system has offered and what the parents prefer, and that is in essence what unilateral is describing, and that's why we think it's important to distinguish those. But that said, this shifting of the burden, I think, is often portrayed as fundamentally changing what happens at the IEP team meeting and in that collaborative process. And it is always extraordinarily uncomfortable for not a lifelong but 14-year professional advocate for public education to sit and hear what are clearly a parade of terribles in terms of situations arising in classrooms and individual IEP meetings. As the child of a school psychologist and the son of a mother who was a special educator, I can tell you that was dinner time conversation. You only heard about the worst case examples and not the vast majority of cases in which parents are satisfied, which students are receiving appropriate special education services, and we certainly have every reason to believe that that is the case in Maryland under the current law and the application of the current burden of proof as upheld by the Supreme Court in the Schaefer v. Wiest case, which arose from Montgomery County, Maryland, and which was decided in 2005. And so we would urge the committee to reject the bill and leave the burden of proof where it resides, as it does under American jurisprudence with the moving party.
Just one question. If you think the burden of proof is so fair, then why is everybody complaining in terms of what they think? I mean, it's interesting because if you're the parent, or even if you're the teachers that wrote the IEP, then you would know whether or not the child is progressing. Would you not know that? So if I begin to complain that I don't think my child is progressing at the rate that they should, and then the burden of proof is always on me, and it's always no, your child is doing fine. But we know the child is not doing fine. So that's the only, if you're saying that the IEPs are appropriate and the child is learning, that's one thing, but the parent knows whether or not the child is learning.
Madam Chair, I think you've struck on one of the toughest questions and concerns with regard to special education, and education often in general, is we wrestle with the parent knows best, and the parent in their hearts wants what's in the best interest of their child, and the extraordinarily complex professional responsibilities that professional educators have to develop plans for individual students. And so the parent identifying what they think is as less progress than the child should be making is exactly precisely why we're opposed to shifting the burden of proof and relying more heavily on the educator's opinion of what progress the child should be making and is making than on the parent's opinion. And that
but it's not just the parent's opinion, because what I have consistently heard is that once the IEP has been developed, they're not following the IEP. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. Not that I'm just making an assessment that I want my child to do better, that I think that they could do better. And they probably could. But the whole issue that I have continued to hear is that the IEP is not being followed. Okay?